Hey guys, this is Hades. This is another Raid Shadow Legends video. Guys, I'm doing a follow-up to my video I did yesterday about epics that don't need books and are still great. I'm going to give you 20 legendaries that can get by without books just fine. Now, listen to the examples that I talk about in this video, because you might be playing a legendary or need to play a legendary in a completely different place, a completely different case to what I describe here. And in that situation, you might look at their abilities and say, you know what? For what I want this legendary to do, I should book those skills. Okay? You should also please take into account, similar to what I said yesterday, is when you book someone, yeah, there's going to be a skill that you particularly want booked. So for my Smash Lord, I particularly want for him to get, additional debuff chance here, or perhaps the cooldown here. Let's say this is it. So let's say I want the cooldown here. So I'm only going to apply one book at a time and hope that I get the book in the right place one at a time. Someone said to me yesterday, you can't decide when you're going to book something. No, I can't. But if I land the book in the place where I want it, I will stop spending books. This situation's gone terribly because it's all done in the wrong place and I end up wasting all my books. But if that had gone there on the first book, I would have just stopped. So that's what I was getting to when I said in my video yesterday, you choose when to stop using books. Don't just, file in as many as you can. Okay, so let's get into this then. 20 legendaries that don't need books. So first one up, Lord Chamfer. I honestly think for what you gain in books, damage, I don't see him as a damage dealer. Damage, I don't see him as a damage dealer. And passive, maybe you want this passive booked, potentially. The passive is the only thing that I could even remotely say should be booked. But the shield goes on for 2 turns. It's a 2-turn cooldown anyway. So an additional book is going to make it a 1-turn cooldown on something that goes on for 2 turns. Do you gain? I don't feel like you do. So for me, Chamfer, for the job that I would use him, which is pretty much Scarab Boss, he does all he needs unbooked. So Chamfer, first one up. Second one up is going to be the Baron. Now, with the AI changes, I think you pretty much just A1 all the time. A1 all the time. His other kit's okay, not great, but his A1 is what he's all about. And if you stack him full of damage, you can get his A1 nuking whole waves of enemies. If I was going to use him, I'd probably use him as a campaign farmer or as early level Doom Tower kind of annihilator. And he does all of that great with his A1. The only thing he can unlock is Sky Piercer, which is awesome, by the way, and doesn't benefit from books. So A1 or Sky Piercer, please use those, Baron. Don't worry about using anything else. And the other areas is pretty much where you want to land your books. Now, as I said earlier, situationally, you might decide to do something different because you might want the extra 20% damage from books, and it's not a bad upgrade. Everything you do is going to be times by 1.2. So it's not a bad one to book. But honestly, I wouldn't book him. And I think you still get pretty much the same use from him unbooked. Black Knight's the other one here in the Banner Lords for me. So what do I gain from books? Damage. 1 cooldown on a 3-turn cooldown ability anyway. And more damage on a provoke. He is a damage dealer. So I guess you could argue again that pushing his damage up is nice. But honestly, for this champion, I would run him without books and be fully comfortable with his kit. So Black Knight is the other one in Banner Lords. Let's move on to the High Elves. This is a really cool one, actually. So Raw Huntsman, actually a great champion. And I said yesterday when I was talking about Madame, why wouldn't I book Madame? Because the main thing she does, she already does without books. Yeah, Huntsman's the same. So Huntsman does 100% chance of placing his decreased defense unbooked. He's one of the other ones. I said there was only a couple. He's one of the other ones. One of the best abilities in the game. He does it completely unbooked. Now, you could argue, and it's a good argument to say that I would like the cooldown if I'm running him in dungeons. And I agree. If you've got books, bringing that cooldown in is valuable. But it's definitely not a necessity. And the other thing that I would use Huntsman for is his A3, which ignores 100% defense. Now, you get 25% more damage if you book it, which is nice. But I would argue that nobody lives anyway. Anyone he hits with this, he's hitting for 100k. Okay, so let's say we strip the books out. and he's hitting for 75k, they're still dead. They're still dead. So for me, I don't think he needs books, and I think he works just as well unbooked. Okay, this is a good example on the website where I'm like, you get good value from books, but it depends where you're using Arbiter. So if Arbiter is literally your setup for Arena, a bit like I said with Dordrab yesterday, if she's going to be your setup for the Arena, you boost your turn meter, you give everyone increased attack, everybody's dead a few seconds later, and you move on to the next fight. If that's what you use her for, no books required. Okay? You're very unlikely to get back down to a second revive anyway on a 5-turn cooldown. The A2 is a nice to have, it's really a nothing ability, which is a nice to have if it happens. The A1, a weaken, 50% chance if booked anyway. Again, it's not a bad buff, but it depends where you're going to use her. If you use her everywhere in the game, for every team that you own, then she's going to gain value from books. But if she's mainly a setup for your Arena, I think you get away without books, and she does the same exact job. So, improves her with books, but doesn't need booking to use her right as soon as you get her. As soon as you get her, she'll be useful. Okay, on to Sacred Order. Who have we got here? Yeah, interesting one again. So, Cupidus. I argue that Cupidus is all about his A1. Pretty much is A1. So you would gain some value of damage from books. Yes, you would. But as a campaign farmer, now we can turn off the other skills. Someone else sets him up with an increase, with a decreased defense. He comes and slams with an AoE on his A1. And for the Arena, for campaign farmer, for whatever else, he will do plenty of damage with this A1. This is a rubbish ability anyway. This ability will just get a reduced cooldown. So this is kind of nice, but it's very much a manual ability rather than an auto ability if you want it for Spider or something. So yeah, for me, A1 is what he's all about, and you can use him unbooked. He's probably more of a sketchy one, to be honest, but I thought I'd throw it in there to hit number 20. Okay, next one up. Where are you? Wrong faction. Barbs. Elder Scarred. Now, again, probably contentious because he's one of the hardest hitting single target champions in the game. Okay, so if that's why you're using him, books here, more damage. Books here, more damage is all nice. But honestly, I think most people use him for an AoE HP burn and True Fear, which is a great ability. You don't gain any additional cooldown from booking it. He does the same ability whether you've booked him or not. And I think this is what you want him for. So for most people, I think unbooked Elder Scarred is as good as a booked Elder Scarred. So the other stuff here, you get reduced cooldown in his A3. His A3 is nothing compared to his A2. So, and his A2 is also the big hitter for damage. So yeah, for me, you get nothing else here. Elder Scarred, completely fine, unbooked. Okay, I did click on it just now. Asurga. Why do I use Asurga in the Arena for my defense? I use her for a passive. Decreases the damage all allies receive from crits by 30%. That's massive, by the way. Such a massive passive. So 30% less damage from that Trunder. Instead of hitting you for 100k a pop, she's only hitting you for 70k a pop. You nearly lived. You nearly lived that time. Other stuff here, nice to have, nice to have, nice to have. Depending on where you're going to use her. Yeah, so if I use her for an Arena defense champion, I do not expect her to use this ability twice. Even booked, I don't think I got 3 turns out of it. Yeah, I don't care about this ability for Arena defense, and I don't really care about this. It's a nice to build. But for this, is why I use her. So if you're going to use her in every team in your setup, and you know what, you probably do want the reduced cooldown. You probably do want the reduced cooldown here as well. But honestly, I think for what I would use her for, she is perfect unbooked. Okay, let's move on. From one big mama to another. War Mother. Lady H called this one this morning. I said, I'm going to do a video on Legendaries, who I don't need to book. And she was like, I don't know what, War Mother? Joking around. It's no joke. She's in there. She's in there. So why would I use her? Potentially as a decrease attack champion for Clan Boss if I'm struggling. Okay, bam, decrease attack. It's the same chance to land, booked or unbooked. Perfect. Okay? If you're not using her for that, then you might be like, well, the only other use case for a War Mother is to go into my arena team and blow up bombs. Guess what? She blows up bombs the same whether she's booked or not. Okay, so someone else goes before her, they place a load of bombs which do a ton of damage, and she's like, pop, I'm going to blow them up. Now, this ability actually hits hard, so you could argue I want a bit more damage from the hit. But if you've landed 2 bombs on an enemy and she hits with this, they're all dead. They're all dead anyway. So I think completely unbooked. War Mother's got 2 good use cases. Okay. And I never thought I'd say that on a video. Okay, let's move on. Angar's next on the list. Angar, what do I use him for? I use him for the 100% provoke. I use him for the reflect damage and the counter attack. Okay, where do I use that? I use it for the arena. I use it for finite. It's the same unbooked as booked. It's the same. Exactly the same. The only thing you might benefit from it with booking is this increased chance to land your debuff when he takes a hit to put the provoke back on again. Certainly if you're using him against the dragon, magma dragon, then you might want books here. But honestly, he doesn't even hit that hard. People said to me, oh, he's a hard hitter. He's not that great. He's an okay hitter. So I'm not fussed about the damage out of this. The cooldown, I guess, is okay. But honestly, I don't feel like you need to book him to get the same value out of Angar. This next one, when I was going through this one blows my mind because potentially the best champion in the game, and I think you get the same value out of a Kyrmar unbooked as you do booked. And he's the best champion in the game. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? I have noticed, actually, as I go through this, the newer champions, they've got more and more savvy, more clever with. Almost all of the new champions need books to work. There's not many champions on this list. In fact, maybe 1, 2 out of 20 that are newer champions. The rest are old school. They've got cleverer to realize that at least one book should need, at least one skill should need to be booked. So what does he gain from books? More damage. I'm not using him for damage. The poison's the best part about this ability. And honestly, if you're building him to land this poison, damn, you're in trouble. You're in trouble because that's not what he's all about. The A2, you get the sleep away, the removal buffs. If you're rolling around to using this twice, it's a pretty sad state of affairs. So, do I want more damage? Okay, it's nice to have, but I don't need it. The ability works exactly the same unbooked. And I tell you what, if you're rolling this one twice in a dungeon or in an event or whatever, then yikes. So yeah, everything about his kit is perfect, unbooked. Damn, best champion in the game, doesn't even need books. Ridiculous. Okay, next one up. This one's going to be an interesting one. More to Macabre. I think he's pretty trash as a champion, but he's one of the worst champions in the game to face. Yeah, we face him in Doom Tower higher levels. I had the misfortune of trying to help someone do that, and it was the worst 2 hours of my life. So more to, why might someone use more to Macabre? You ask yourself. Because there's a chance to unlock peril, okay? Every time he gets hit, 20% chance to unlock peril. And if he does, peril is one of the best abilities in the game. Ignores shields, ignores block damage, as well as defense. So he's like that. He's like that. He's blind. Suddenly he can see, and he ignores everything that's worthwhile defending you, okay? And you tell you what, he kills anyone with this ability, okay? As long as he's not getting weak hits or whatever. But booking this champion doesn't change his chance of getting peril. The rest of his kit is basically trash. You gain an extra, 10% chance to put block buffs out? I'd take the 90 and run, to be honest. So, yeah. This guy, 100% as useful booked as unbooked. I'm not saying he's useful, but if he unlocks peril, he's nasty to deal with. So, more to Macabre in the mix. Next one, top tier. This is another one, a bit like an Arbiter. Depends where you're going to use this Duchess, right? But Duchess, awesome champion. The best, maybe the best champion for arena defense in the game. Awesome champion anywhere in the game. So if I'm using her in a best use case, which is arena defense, okay, The best thing about her is her passive, okay? Reduces the damage from AoE attacks by 25%. Yeah, let's go back to that Trunder who's trying to slap you for 100k a pop. Oh, you know what? I've only got to deal with 75k a pop now. I nearly lived. Okay, so Duchess, absolutely great for a passive. The other ability, so the revive. Are you getting a revive twice? I guess it's possible that you do, but the main part of her kit here works booked or unbooked. Same with Array 2. Are you getting to use this twice? Okay, and if you're in the proper end game, you're going to book your Duchess, because if you're building a stall defense, you know what? You might survive long enough to use all these things twice. You really might. But for most players that play this game that are struggling for books, all those players I've just talked about, by the way, buy the books. That's how they got to the end game. They shell tons of cash into the game. But for you, you might not. So Duchess, do not figure to yourself, I have to book her to use her. Use her straight away. She is awesome unbooked. Duchess in the mix. Okay, let's move on. We're on to the undeads. First one I'm going to throw out is Suzerain. I'm not saying he's the most useful champion in the game, but the use case for him is to remove shields, remove block damage, and remove unkillable from all enemies. That's his use case, yeah? And the buff removal cannot be resisted. So why do you use him? Because you don't need accuracy to wipe all of those big shields off or those unkillables or whatever. You don't need any accuracy to do it, which makes him a good champion to go up against Force Affinity or Void Affinity or Spirit Affinity champions that are doing this. Great against Krisk. Remove all of the shields that Krisk is going to throw out, then you nuke them down, okay? So that's his use case, and books don't improve it at all. The rest of the stuff I don't even care about. I don't even think I've read his kit beyond that, because it's pretty bad. Look, if you're going to use him as your campaign farmer, and everything here is an AoE, then you might want to book the damage, okay? But for the best use case for him, I don't think he needs books. Next one is actually one of the newer champions that I spoke about. Now, he absolutely benefits from books, okay? He gets reduced cooldowns. If I'm using him in clan boss or, dungeon running and all that sort of stuff, I'm going to book him. But his absolute best use case right now is arena offense. And arena defense he's good for, by the way, but arena offense, he protects somebody off the bat with a passive, okay? And then he gets to protect someone else if he gets a turn. That's the first two things you do. You never get round to doing that again. You never do it again. He's already, the team's already killing people. So he's also got his ally attack. You get a reduced cooldown on this. You're never doing it twice. So for me, netcrip the Great is awesome because he doesn't need books. You will see, if you're on my website, you'll probably be like, well, you say he gets good value from books. He does, because it's actually really cheap to book. Okay, and the books do gain good value, but depends on where you're going to use him. And if you're using him for his best use case, he doesn't need any books. Okay, next one up. This was a cool one as well, actually. Another top tier champion. Xavier is still an endgame champion. I still use her in my endgame dragon team. She's still super cool at progressing through different areas. If you're going to use her for clan boss, you still get the same chance to put poisons out, booked or unbooked. You still get the same cooldown on a poison explosion if you're going to use her for wave killing and with a reset champion. So the only thing you gain from books really is a bit more chance to land poison on Array 2, which is okay. Honestly, yeah, I mean, it's okay, but it's definitely not the best part about a kit. You get a bit more damage on Array 1. It's okay, but it's not really where our damage is coming from. And you get a bit more damage on this ability that does the block revive. Now, if I was using it as my arena nuker, I'd want it booked. But for my use case, which is blowing up poisons, killing a wave, moving on to the next wave, blowing up poisons, killing a wave, getting onto the dragon, laying the A1 poisons on the dragon, books make literally no difference, or very little difference. So for me, Xavier, still endgame, booked or unbooked. Okay, now the Throne Visic's in the mix because I think the best part about her change and her kit now is that she does an AoE provoke, booked or unbooked. Yeah, and she puts a shield on at the same time. Now, you could argue reduce the cooldown on this is nice, and it is. This one here, decreased speed, AoE, and ally protection. Well, all we're going to gain from this, again, is a cooldown on this ability. It's a nice to have, not a must have. and then you get a bit more debuff chance on the A1. Look, she's better booked, okay? But if you've just got her as a free champion and you're looking for some control and some team protection, I didn't go ahead and use her unbooked. I probably wouldn't book her myself. You gain value from books, but I think you gain value on a lot more champions and save the books for me. So Visix still usable unbooked. Okay, this is probably I'm probably going to get argued down on this one, but I figured I'd throw it in there because Hedi, what do I use Hedi for? I don't have him, so I don't use him. But if I did, what would I use him for? I would use him as an annoying champion in the arena to lock out my enemies. That's what he's annoying. That's why he's so annoying. So annoying. You have to bring an immunity gear against him because he's going to lock out the most important champion on your team more often than not. He does it on his A2. He gets his block cooldown skills. Yeah, it's a 50% chance to land. And if you book him, guess what? It's a 50% chance to land. Now, if you're going full end game and I want to build the absolute biggest nuke Hedi in the world, I tell you what, you're going to book him for the extra 30% damage. Yeah. But for the average player that doesn't have the books, Hedi does the same job whether you book him or not. The same job, and that is hound the enemy. Put him in a stun set, forget the books, and he will be the most disgusting champion on your lineup. So yeah, Hedi does the same job. This, I mean, if you're using him for this, then you're probably just short on champions, and maybe you would book that. But everything else about him doesn't need books. So Hedi in the mix. Love it. Okay, we're getting down to the last two. So next one up. No, it's not Trunda. It's not Trunda. Book your Trunda. She's ridiculous. Okay, Morley Tankard. What do I use a Morley for? Mainly for this. Mainly for a passive. Mainly as an anti-Hedi. Yeah, anti-Hedi teams. So when she takes a hit, she throws your turn meter forward and she allows your team to basically increase their chance of getting their turn. What else might I want her for? A provoke? Yes, please. She does no damage on her A1. Even if you put her as an absolute damage goddess, she does no damage on her A1. Forget about it. You get reduced cooldown on the revive. I have my Morley's booked, by the way. I don't think I've ever seen her revive twice. If you survive long enough to revive twice, damn, you're in trouble. Or they're in trouble. I don't know. You're both in trouble. You both need to get out more. So, yeah. The only place where I'd maybe argue that I'd love a book is the A2. But honestly, it's not what I use her for. So, you know, I just can't see that you would need any books in it. This is maybe an argument as well. Maybe you'd say, well, I want to get the extra turn meter time and time again. But for the main use case is to skip ahead of a Hedi or to skip ahead of your opponent in the arena. And I think she does that exactly the same, booked or unbooked. Okay, last one. And this is going to be the only, or maybe the second, like, new champion. Riho Bone Spear. Actually a pretty cool champ. One of the newer ones for Shadowkin. So I think one of her best use cases is arena defense. Yeah, because what does she do? She's got this annoying ability. When receiving any debuffs, instantly transfers it from this champion to the attacker. Kyrmar sleeps your team. You know what she does? She sleeps Kyrmar. Pretty cool, actually. And then she's also got this ability here. It removes all debuffs from all allies. Then puts block debuffs on them and heals. Now, if you're going to use her outside of arena, I think arena defense is the best spot. If you're going to use her outside of that, then you probably want to get this down to the 3-turn cooldown. You probably want the additional cooldown on this and blah, blah, blah. But actually, extra damage, not really fussed about. Extra damage, not really fussed about. Reduced cooldowns is a nice to have. So for me, there's definitely a use case to say I don't need to book her. Depends on when you're going to use it. But for me, arena defense, I wouldn't put any books into her for that. Whew, so that's 20. I'm sure plenty of people are going to say, I do book this champion for this reason. Great. At least you're thinking about why you're booking the champion. That's all I'm trying to do here is open people's minds to think, this is my use case, and therefore that's why I'm not booking them or why I would book them. And that's what I want you guys to do. Think for yourself, what am I going to use the champion for? And therefore, should I apply books or shouldn't I? If you can get yourself into that sort of mindset, then I think you'll save a lot of books. I've been Hell Hades. I will see you later.